Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live, presented by The Grid. I am Bryson Carver, as always, right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Again, today is not a live show. I am actually recording this like in the morning. It's like 7 o'clock right now when I'm recording, but lots to talk about today. Week 3 action, all kinds of stuff going on. I'm going to lead off with Tampa, Green Bay. What a crazy game that was, a defensive struggle. I'll also talk about another defensive struggle that wasn't quite as compelling. That would be the Niners and the Broncos last night. I don't know what the over-under was on that game. I did not check. What I do know is it was significantly under. Okay, 21 combined points as the Broncos beat the Niners 11-10. I'll talk about that, as well as Miami outlasting Buffalo. Dolphins stay undefeated. They're first in the AFC East. Bills suffer their first loss of the season. I've also got some thoughts on the whole Tua situation in regards to his injury. Also, did I need further confirmation that Steph Curry II was the best player on the planet? No, I didn't, but I still got it. And it actually happened to come from the guy that many people say is the best player on the planet. That'd be one Giannis Antetokounmpo, who said yesterday that Steph Curry is the best player in the world. I'll talk about that. And at the end of the show, I'll predict Cowboys, Giants, Monday Night Football to close out Week 3 in the NFL. Giants win. They'll be tied with Philly for top of the division. Dallas wins, their game back of Philly. So this is a big NFC East matchup tonight in the Meadowlands. So I'll talk about that and predict that at the end of the show. But first, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, the matchup between the two, no question, no doubt about it. Future first ballot Hall of Famers, of course, that would be Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. The Packers survived the Bucs 14-12, and it was not the quarterback duel that we thought we might see, although I can't say I'm completely shocked because Green Bay's receiving core is about as limited as it gets. And given Tampa Bay's injuries and suspensions, that being, of course, Mike Evans, Tampa Bay's receiving core wasn't all that great either. I mean, Russell Gage was Tom Brady's best receiver. You know, Alan Lazard and Romeo Doubs were Aaron Rodgers' best receivers. So they're not exactly household names. Those a defensive battle throughout. Green Bay scored 2 touchdowns to start the game off. They did not score after 8 minutes and 44 seconds left in the second quarter and still somehow managed to win the game. This goes back to what I said about the Packers coming into the game, and I think moving forward. You guys know I didn't have the Packers as a playoff team this year because of their limitations at wide receiver and otherwise. But when you have a team that can run the football as effectively as Green Bay can, with the running back duo they have in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, when you have Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't normally turn the football over, although he did have that pick at midfield to Logan Ryan, Aaron's not going to turn the football over in part because he doesn't take a lot of shots down the field. That's always been one of my knocks against Aaron. But control the clock, get out to a lead, run the football, and play great defense. And that's what they did, even without Jair Alexander. Like, this is, if you told me coming into Tampa, Green Bay before the season started, hey, Green Bay's going to lose Jair Alexander in the first half, I'd be like, oh boy, this could be a long day for Green Bay. But again, Mike Evans gone, Chris Godwin gone, Julio Jones gone. I mean, it got so bad they had to sign Cole Beasley to their practice squad and promote him at the last second. So you got Russell Gage and Rashad Perriman both fumbled in the game. Cameron Brake, Kyle Rudolph caught a pass, Cole Beasley. Again, not exactly household names that either quarterback is working with. But for Green Bay's side, this is how they can win. Running the football and play defense. It's not sexy. It's very old school, especially when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers who's won the last 2 MVPs. But that's their formula to win. They are not going to beat you in shootouts. Okay, because when Green Bay plays Buffalo down the road or when they play the Rams, they are not going to win 34-31. That's not how the Packers are going to have to win football games this year. But it was a good win for Green Bay on the road in Tampa Bay. As for the Buccaneers, let's start with the defensive side of the ball, because that's, to me, obviously the clear positive for Tampa. The Bucs might have the best defense in the NFL, folks. It's phenomenal. I thought even the secondary might be their weakness. No, it's actually one of their strengths. They take the ball away. They took it away against Dallas. They took it away against the Saints numerous times off Jameis Winston, and they got a turnover off the guy who never throws interceptions, Aaron Rodgers. Carlin Davis played a good game. Again, Logan Ryan had the interception. Jamel Dean was good in stopping the run. And then up front, getting to the quarterback, pressure. Levante David, Devin White, we're everywhere, diagnosing everything. So I'm not concerned at all about Tampa's defense. As a matter of fact, and I've been talking to some buddies of mine about this over the weekend, Tampa's defense might be better than it was in their Super Bowl winning season in 2020. I'm dead serious. Okay? Against Dallas, they gave up 3. Against the Saints, they gave up 10. Against the Packers, they gave up 14. The unfortunate thing for them is 14 was unfortunately a little too much in this game, despite, again, holding the Packers scoreless for the last 2.5 quarters. Offensively, though, for Tampa, that's where I really want to get at. So Mike Evans gone, Godwin gone, Julio Jones gone. And then you have, obviously, in the backfield, Leonard Fournette played okay. You look at his numbers yesterday, 12 carries for 35 yards, under 3 yards a clip. He's fine. You know, the Packers defense, Rashawn Gary and company did a good job. Devontae Campbell, who played a good game, sniffing out the run, making sure Fournette didn't, get any big holes to run through, because we know Leonard Fournette is a physical runner. He's a big back. He's got big legs. He's going to drive through you, right? So being able to diagnose it, stop the run. Here's the thing, though. And again, Green Bay did exactly what you have to do to beat Tom Brady. Okay? Jam his receivers a little bit and get pressure. We know Tom's the GOAT. Nobody's disputing that. But he is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league under pressure, especially up the middle. You get pressure up the middle, he's really in trouble. Okay, you look at the game yesterday. Green Bay had, how many sacks Green Bay have? Green Bay, I think, had 3 sacks. I think I'm reading that right. 3 sacks, yeah. But it felt like they had 5. Getting the backfield over and over and over on Tom Brady. And yet, despite that, GOAT did what GOAT does. 87-yard drive into the game, puts Tampa Bay in a position to score. They do. He throws a touchdown pass to Russell Gage. It was a great throw by Tom, fitting it through that tight window. And then the 2-point conversion. They got a simple run play. Fournette's going to just take the handoff out of the shotgun from Brady. Looks like he's going to punch it in easily, maybe even untouched. But Tampa commits, Aaron Rodgers said after the game, he felt like they committed it back-to-back plays. I felt like it was just only the one. But Tampa Bay commits a delay of game, which forces them to have to go from the 7-yard line as opposed to the 2. And Tom throws an incomplete pass to Russell Gage, and that's all she wrote, 14-12. But again, and I'm not going to, because I said after the Saints game, something's up with Tom Brady, something's up with the Bucs offense. I'm not going to be as critical today because they played a great defense with their top 3 receivers down. Like I can't be brutal on Tom or Todd Bowles or anybody, considering what they had and didn't have more specifically offensively. Again, when Russell Gage is your number 1 target, and I like Russell Gage. You guys know I like the signing of him in the offseason. But I don't want him to be my number 1 go-to guy. I don't want to have to rely on Cole Beasley on 3rd and 12 or Cameron Brate to get me into position to score a touchdown, tie the game with this 2-point conversion. And it doesn't get easier for Tampa, by the way. They got a home game next week, Sunday Night Football, but playing a pretty ticked-off Kansas City team after they just lost the Indianapolis Colts yesterday, 20-17. So Kansas City's coming in. They just lost their first game. Kansas City's going to be ready to go. Mind you, it's the Super Bowl rematch from 2 years ago in the stadium where the Super Bowl was played. So Kansas City's going to be ready to go. They're going to want to get revenge. It's probably the last matchup between Mahomes and Brady unless they meet in the Super Bowl. Like, it's tough sledding for Tampa from here on out. I mean, look at the Bucs schedule. Again, I mentioned they have Kansas City next week. They got Atlanta. They'll beat Atlanta. Then they got at Pittsburgh. That's tough defense. Again, get pressure on Tom. That's the best way to beat him. Okay, then at Carolina. Ravens at home. That's a short week, a Thursday night football game. Did you see Lamar Jackson yesterday? Again, I think that man's going to get his money. Okay, you got the Rams at home. Then you got Seattle at Cleveland. Saints again. We know the Saints give Tampa all kinds of trouble. At the Niners, home against the Bengals, at the Cardinals, then you finish with the Panthers and Falcons. So some pretty winnable division games in there. Again, they're obviously better than Atlanta and Carolina, but the Saints cause all kinds of matchup problems. We've seen that for years now. You got some great defensive lines in San Francisco and Pittsburgh and Baltimore. You got playmakers at quarterback like Baltimore or Arizona or the LA Rams. or the Chiefs. Like, this is not going to be easy sledding for Tampa. But it's going to be interesting to see where they go from there. Again, I'm sure everybody's in the comment section right now. I wish I could respond, but again, the show is not live. I'm recording this. It's about 8 in the morning now. I have some things to do at night. In other words, I got to work. But listen, it was a great day in the NFL yesterday. Week 3, it was crazy. But before I even move to my next topic, I think it is worth mentioning. Sorry for the podcast audience, those listening. But for the streaming audience, Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube, I'm sure you could see I'm wearing the big orange and white Power T for Tennessee. My Vols just beat Florida on Saturday. Nail biter. Florida recovered an onside kick with 17 seconds left. Scared the living daylights out of me after we just had a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. But my man Hendon Hooker, can we put him in the Heisman discussion, folks? Can we put Hendon Hooker in the Heisman discussion? Can we do that? Because he's looking phenomenal. Okay, became the first Tennessee quarterback since my man Josh Dobbs, Space Dobbs as I call him, because he's aerospace engineer major, very smart guy. First quarterback at Tennessee since Joshua Dobbs to throw for 300 and rush for 100. He threw for around 350, rushed for 112. He was phenomenal. Threw a couple touchdown passes. Even without Tennessee's number one target, Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy had a big game. He had a big gain on a busted coverage by Florida. Jalen Hyatt was good. That Keaton kid made the catch of the weekend in college football, the diving catch on the 99-yard drive that set up Tennessee's scoring drive at the end of the half in a lead that they would never give up from there. Jalen Wright and Jabari Small ran the football well. The only concern I have for my Vols is defensively. They like to play sort of a zone scheme. Anthony Richardson, who we know is not a great thrower of the football at Florida, consistently over and over and over found the hole in that zone for Tennessee. It didn't matter if it was 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 14. So Tennessee's defense was not great on 3rd down. They weren't good at all on 4th down. They only stopped Florida once on 4th down. So that's going to be something I'll have to clean up, but it's a bye week. We got at LSU and then the real test, home against the Alabama Crimson Tide. So listen, Alabama will and should be favored in that game. I want to be very clear by that. But Tennessee can beat Alabama. It's the highest Tennessee has ever been ranked in the AP Top 25 since the College Football Hall of Fame head coach, Philip Fulmer, was in town and running the show. The number 8th ranked team in America. Should be 7 in my opinion. USC should have moved back, but that's neither here nor there. But let's go, Vols. Great win over Florida. Enjoy the bye week, and then it's on to the fake Southerner from Baton Rouge. That being Brian Kelly, of course. All right, moving on now. Moving on now to Miami Buffalo. Whew. That was something. That game had everything. You had great quarterback play. You had turnovers. You had butt punts. You had offensive coordinators losing their you-know-what after the game. It was crazy. And you had a controversial injury, which I will discuss later after I talk about the game. But as for the game, got 2-2-0 AFC East teams. Bills, who are seem like today, at least yesterday, they were the odds-on favorites to come out of the AFC and go to the Super Bowl. And the Miami Dolphins, who were just coming off a massive comeback to beat the Baltimore Ravens. Miami's at home. It's 90 degrees. It is humid as it can get. I mean, the way Hard Rock Stadium is built, Miami, their sideline is shaded, so they don't have to worry about it. Buffalo's sideline, they had to get some team staffers to hold umbrellas over the players on the bench because it was so hot. So it was a humid day in Miami. It was a hot day, and it was a crazy game that came down literally to the last play, and Miami won 21-19. Let me start with Buffalo first. Certainly not their most impressive offensive performance, considering they put 31 up on the champs, and they put 41 up on Tennessee last week on Monday Night Football. And this is, I think, their first loss in Miami in, it's been, 6-7 years? I think I heard Kevin Harlan, the great Kevin Harlan, who called the game yesterday. I think he said it's been 6 or 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, since Buffalo has lost to Miami in Miami. So they sort of had like the Jaguars over Colts sort of curse, if you will, in Miami. But Josh Allen still played exceptionally, in my view, despite the early turnover. Man threw for 400 yards, okay, 2 touchdowns, had a QBR of 60 and a passer rating of 94. You don't want, if you're Buffalo, for Josh Allen to have to throw the football 63 times. That is not preferred. But if you're Buffalo, you have over 500 yards of offense. I mean, tell me if you've ever heard this before. 500 yards of offense, and you don't break 20. I've never heard of that before. Now, again, they had some drives stall. Again, at their second to last drive, they had a 4th and goal. Josh Allen skipped it to the right corner of the end zone. He threw it short. I'm not sure. Again, he's got the best arm in the league. Maybe he would have been able to fit it in there. But Buffalo, that great drive, and they came up short on 4th and goal before the butt punt, of course. But I think if you're Buffalo, your thing at this point has got to be, we got to finish. Not just finish the game, execute well. We got to finish drives. Okay, because we practically gave Miami 7 points with the strip sack that Miami took on a short field and scored a touchdown on. Our quarterback threw for 400. We ran for over 100 combined. Like that's a game that we have to win. Isaiah McKenzie looked good. You had some plays here and there from Stephon Diggs. He had that big gain early in the game. So it's just about cleaning up the little things for Buffalo. I'm not concerned about the Bills. I know a lot of people a little bit in panic mode over the Bills. You had to lose your first game at some point. Okay, contrary to what some people in the media might have believed, Buffalo was not going 17-0 this season. Okay, they weren't. But what we do know is this. They got to finish drives. And this is a well-coached team. Sean McDermott, Ken Dorsey, who we saw going ballistic in the booth after the game. Shout out to whoever covered the camera up after about 5 seconds of just going crazy, throwing his papers, throwing his notes everywhere. Shout out to whoever covered up the camera, because you could see someone just put their hand over it. But it's a well-coached team. They have arguably the best quarterback in the NFL, one of the best offenses in the NFL, one of the best defenses in the NFL, who, as I shift to Miami, the Dolphins took advantage of. Buffalo had 2 defensive rookies in their secondary. Jordan Poyer was out. Micah Hyde was out and is going to be out for the season, unfortunately. Prayers to him for a speedy recovery. And Tre'Davious White, their Pro Bowl corner, was out. So for Miami, this is Baltimore all over again. You got 2 rookies in the secondary. Their 3 best players in the secondary are all out due to injury. Poyer, Hyde, and White. And to the Dolphins' credit, for the most part, they took advantage. They took advantage of the turnover forced by the Dolphins. Melvin Ingram, of course, recovered. And I'll give Tua credit on this. You guys know I'm not high on Tua. I'm starting to have a little problem with his fans more than I am him. But he delivered the throw. 3rd and 22, delivered the throw down the field to Jalen Waddle. It was perfect the way the defense had it set up. Made the pass down the field, capped off by a touchdown. Again, that was a lead that the Dolphins never relinquished. So credit to Tua there. I give credit where credit's due. And you look at Tua's numbers yesterday. Okay, he went 13 for 18 for a $186, a touchdown, QBR of 79, passer rating of 123. So in the time that Mike McDaniel gave him to throw the football, again, only 18 passes, but again, he was hurt at the end of the first half. We'll talk about that in just a second. He did his job. Can't criticize the dude for doing his job. Okay, last week, people got on me saying I was too critical about the 6-touchdown game. I'm like, look, name more than 2 good throws he made. The Waddle game-winning touchdown was not a good throw. The last Tyreek Hill touchdown, Tyreek was open by 10 yards. I would hope you could deliver that throw. Again, I said last week, if Tua couldn't hit the receivers last week, Tua should not be in the National Football League. Simple as that. Okay, so I give him more credit for this game than the last game. Because in this game, I saw Tua make the throw to Jalen Waddle that set up what ended up basically being the game-winning touchdown for Miami. Like, that was a big boy, step up in the pocket, 3rd and a mile, and delivering it perfectly to your receiver. That is what I've been wanting to see from Tua. Again, let's see if he can continue it. Right? If you look just at the numbers, okay, he outdueled Josh Allen. Again, Josh Allen is obviously the better quarterback, and I think Buffalo is the better team in the long run. But credits to Tua where it's due. Speaking of Tua, Miami's in some trouble. Miami's in trouble. Because I got to get a drink of water for this one. Because late in the first half, One Tua Tagovailoa gets hit, falls down, and his back of his head slams on the turf. Now we know that is never a good sight when you see a quarterback go, if anybody go down and they land butt first and then their head kind of just like whiplashes almost backwards and then boom, hits the turf real hard. And we see Tua get up. He's kind of walking gingerly and then he stumbles. And I always said, I remember what this happened to Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game 2 years ago against the Cleveland Browns. Like Patrick Mahomes ran like a little quarterback option to like the right, got tackled, got up, and then stumbled down. And he didn't play for the rest of the game. And I've always said, if you see a dude stumble, I don't care if he's Tom Brady. I'm not letting him back in the game. I am not putting my dude in harm's way. We know, listen, leg injuries, ankle, shoulder, you can fight through those. It's hard. Or even rib injuries like Justin Herbert. It's hard, but you can find a way to fight through them. Head injuries are no joke. You and I both know that. And so a report came out about an hour and a half after the game that the NFLPA was going to investigate it, which I don't blame. It's the Players Association. They want to keep their guys safe. And so the Miami Dolphins are just married to shady business, apparently. Because you have the Flores firing, you have the Tom Brady thing from a couple of years ago, and now you have this. Putting your quarterback in harm's way. Again, Mike McDaniel tried to say after the game it was a back injury. I'm sorry. I've never seen somebody stumble and go, "Who?" Like try. You see Tua, he's kind of like shaking his head like real quickly, trying to shake the cobwebs out. That's not a back injury. Tua might have hurt his back. He was not stumbling because his back tightened up. I promise you that. I've seen Tony Romo suffer a lot of back injuries. He never stumbled and tried to shake the cobwebs out. So I don't care what anybody says. Tua played that game with a concussion. So it's going to be really interesting to see once the investigation comes out, once the facts come out about what happened in regard to the concussion protocol. Because I'm sorry, that man should not have finished that football game. I know Teddy Bridgewater came in, went 0 for 2. Teddy Bridgewater should have finished that football game for the Miami Dolphins. Because that is dangerous to put. If that is the guy that you are putting everything into, you've surrounded him with all these targets, right? You obviously you drafted Jalen Waddle last year and you added Tyreek Hill and all these weapons and defense. You hired an offensive coach. Okay, that's fine. You've got him on the field. But you got to have him on the field in the long run. If they had lost this game, no biggie. No, nobody's panicking in Miami. They're 2-1. They're game back in first place in the division. They'll be fine. Okay, they'd be playing a Cincinnati Bengals team who, their only win came against the New York Jets. Okay, you can win that game. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's a home game for Miami. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's a road game in Cincinnati. Okay, they can win that game. They can go to Cincinnati, beat the Bengals, of course. Think about the long run, not the here and now. Yes, you might have won yesterday, but it could cost you on Thursday night, and it could cost you possibly beyond that. So I don't care what anybody says, and I think I'm in the majority when I say this, Tua Tagovailoa should not have finished the game yesterday. That is a dangerous move by the Miami Dolphins to put him in that position. And I'm sorry, because if I'm the NFL, I'm calling the Dolphins. Stephen Ross, the owner, is suspended because of his shady business with Tom Brady and firing Brian Flores. But I'm calling one of the higher ups in the Dolphins organization say, you will not put Tua back in the game or there will be punishment from the league. There is no way that I'm letting him go back out there. And again, to his credit, like I said, he delivered that big throw on 3rd and 22. But man, that was risky. You don't put you don't put anybody in harm's way when they suffer that kind of injury. You don't put your quarterback especially in that position. Dangerous move. And once again, shady business once again by the Miami Dolphins. That said, good win over Buffalo. No question about it. Again, late in the game, you had the now infamous butt punt. So now Mark Sanchez is off the hook. All right, everybody knows about the butt fumble. Thomas Morstead, for those of you who didn't see it, Thomas Morstead, the Dolphins punter, he's backed up in his own end zone. He takes a snap, he punts it, and it goes off. One of the Miami Dolphins literally goes right off of their butt, backwards, out of the end zone for a safety. was crazy. And to the Dolphins defense credit, it looks like Buffalo was driving, but the Miami defense, they got a holding call on the Bills. But Miami's defense made the plays they needed to. I thought watching it live, I'm sure the Bills Mafia will agree with me on this one. I don't think Dolphins fans will. But it felt like on that last play of the game, when Josh Allen made that fantastic play to get out of pressure, get the ball to Isaiah McKenzie. McKenzie couldn't get out of bounds. So Buffalo's hustling the line to get a playoff. This is just me. It felt like the ref took too long to get to the line. Like it felt like the ref had the ball and he was just kind of jogging and not sprinting. Get the ball to the line, spot it, and see if the Bills can run one more play. Like if it felt like that took a little too much time because Isaiah McKenzie gets tackled near the sideline, and I look at the clock and there's 9 seconds. McKenzie gets up, hands the ball to the ref. Obviously, it's a lot of commotion. All the Bills are trying to get in position to run one more play, and it felt like the ref took a little too much time to get the ball downed so the Bills could get a last. But that's just my opinion. But I don't think I don't follow the Buffalo media too much. I don't think any of the Bills players said anything about it after the game, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But the game last night, I got to say this. Game of the year, in my opinion. Game of the year. The Denver Broncos outlasted the San Francisco 49ers by a whopping final score of 11-10. Okay, I'm just kidding. It was the worst, one of the most boring games I've ever watched. Certainly one of the most boring Sunday night games I've ever watched. It is actually only the second 11-10 final score in NFL history. I don't know what the first one was, but I heard Mike Tirico, the announcer for Sunday Night Football, say after the game, it was the second 11-10 score. It was in a similar sense, not as much as the game I just talked about, but it felt like it had everything as well. Okay, you had, I talked about Thomas Morstead with the butt punt, let Mark Sanchez off the hook. Jimmy Garoppolo let Dan Orlovsky off the hook. Everybody remembers the Dan Orlovsky. If I'm not mistaken, that might have been the 0-16 Lions, one of 2 0-16 teams in NFL history, where Orlovsky's in his own end zone. He's running to his right, and he literally runs out of the end zone. Not even close, not even touched by a Minnesota Viking, and it's a safety. It's one of the most embarrassing plays in NFL history. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo basically did the same thing because he's backing up. He has no presence or no awareness of where he's at and just runs out of the back of the end zone for 2 free points for Denver. He's not even touched by a Bronco. It's like it's bad, but I'll talk about Jimmy G in just a second. But let me see. Did they have what the over-under was for this game? I think they do on ESPN. the over-under was 45. Yeah, they didn't get to half of that. They got to 21. It was bad. And again, Niners were favored -1.5. I picked Denver and won by the skin of my teeth. But let's talk about the Broncos for just a second. Because for the first 3.5 quarters, that was about as bad of an offensive performance and as bad of an offensive game plan and as bad as an offensive execution as I've seen. They looked disorganized, discombobulated, at times disinterested, undisciplined. It was bad. And you see why we saw the report on Saturday. We saw why the head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, literally hired somebody to be his game manager. Because we saw against Seattle, he was in over his head. We saw against Houston, he was in over his head. It got so bad in Houston, or not in Houston, against Houston. The game was in Denver, where because they had so many delay of games, when the play clock went to 5, 4, 3, the crowd in Denver would go 5, 4, 3. They'd be helping their coach out. Okay, 60, 70,000, however many people are in that stadium at Mile High are trying to help their head coach with the play clock. That's how bad it got. But the last drive was fantastic. I mean, you look at the last drive for the Denver Broncos. Again, last drive was technically a kneel down, but I'm talking about the game-winning drive. Okay, 12 plays, 80 yards, took 6 minutes off the clock. That, and I tweeted after the game, that looked like Russell Wilson. That looked like what I thought Russell Wilson would be in Denver. It's like for the first time this season, we saw that vintage Russ. He's running around, moving outside the pocket. All right, he's got these little dump-off passes. He's got some big throws over the middle to Sutton, make a place. He even threw a pass to Kendall Hinton And for those who don't know who Kendall Hinton is, he started a game. He's a wide receiver. He started a game at quarterback 2 years ago during the COVID year when all the Broncos quarterbacks contracted COVID. So they had a wide receiver start from the quarterback, and it was a long day for Denver. So he caught a big pass. Russell was big on that last drive, capped off by a Melvin Gordon touchdown. So that was a big-time last drive, game-winning drive by the Denver Broncos. If we can see that moving forward, yeah, my preseason pick to not get to, but win the Super Bowl, sure, they're still alive. I'm just worried about Nathaniel Hackett. That's my concern. I'm not worried about Russell Wilson. He's phenomenal. I'm not worried about you see the talent those Broncos receivers had? Cortland Sutton had a big game. How many receiving yards Cortland Sutton have? What do you have? Trying to find it. Yeah, he had 97 yards on 8 catches. Cortland Sutton was great yesterday. Again, Russell threw for $184. Only had a QBR 32 and a passer rating right down the middle of 75. But all in all, it's a great last drive. If you can take that and move forward with that same confidence, that same level of execution moving forward, not putting yourself back with holding penalties or not being able to protect Russell Wilson against against that Niners defensive line, Denver can win it all. Because we saw that defense. Okay, the one thing that's been constant for the Denver Broncos, just like they're in the conversation with the Tampa Bay Bucks. I just said earlier in the show, Tampa Bay's got the best defense in the NFL. Denver's giving them a run for their money. Because they gave up 17 against Seattle, 9 against Houston, and 10 against the 49ers. Now, none of those are world-beating offenses, but it's still something. It is still something when your season-high point total given up is 17. That means something through 3 games. You look at Denver's schedule moving forward. They got a big game against now the 0-3 Raiders next week. I think Denver should probably be favored to win that. Then they got Colts, who got a big win yesterday, at Chargers, Jets, Jaguars, Titans, Raiders, Panthers, Ravens, Chiefs, Cardinals, Rams, Chiefs, Chargers. So, again, it's kind of murderer's row on the schedule. It is the AFC West after all. But you know what the Denver Broncos are? For all their issues, for all the blown assignments by the offensive line, for the ineptitude offensively of Nathaniel Hackett. You look up today, they're tied for first in the division. They're 2 games up on the Raiders, a game up on the Chargers. They're tied with Kansas City. It's 3 games in. I believe in Russell Wilson. You guys know I believe in Russell Wilson. And I believe in the Broncos moving forward. Maybe it's just simply because of the outcome or how it looked that last drive. But when the money's on the line, Russell did what Russell does. And Denver came through. I gotta give credit where credit's due. Moving on, though, to San Francisco. There's a lot of Jimmy G fans out there. Okay, Jimmy G fans are almost as annoying as Tua fans. But at least Tua's 3-0. Can we please, I'm begging all of you, especially Jimmy G fans, can we please put the notion to bed that Jimmy Garoppolo led the 49ers to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and that a season ago he led the 49ers to the NFC Championship game? Can we please put that to bed? I'm begging you guys. He is the very definition of an average quarterback. I still think Jimmy G is a starting quarterback in the NFL, no question about it. Okay, before Trey Lance went down, Jimmy G was far and away the best backup in the league. But when you have to count on him to make those big throws, that is not his forte, not his strength. The thing with Jimmy Garoppolo that's interesting, because I tweeted last night, I feel like he's a better version of Baker Mayfield. I'd take Jimmy Garoppolo over Baker Mayfield any day of the week. But today, a lesser version of Ryan Tannehill. Like, that's what he feels like today. Like, Ryan Tannehill, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan Tannehill may have made a Pro Bowl. Jimmy G sure hasn't. Can I put up his playoff numbers once again to sort of drive home? I've done this before. I hate to beat up on Jimmy G, but can I put up his playoff numbers? People say he's led the 49ers to the Super Bowl and to the NFC Championship game last season. Does that look like leading to you? 160 yards a game, 4 touchdowns, 6 picks. Completion percentage under 65 and a below average passer rating. Does that look good to you? And I won't even list it today, but if you really want to know how good Jimmy G is, look at his fourth quarter passer rating in the playoffs. It's not very good. He is an average quarterback. You look at his numbers last night. And Denver's got a great defense. We knew before the season Denver's got a tremendous defense. But I don't think they're good enough to hold a guy to a QBR of 14. You've got Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, a great running game, a great offensive line, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, and you score 10 points. With Kyle Shanahan as your offensive play caller. He's an average quarterback, guys. People forget. I think it's worth mentioning. When the Niners were going to go with Trey Lance for this season, Trey's our guy. Remember Kyle Shanahan said Trey's our guy? And they had Jimmy Garoppolo in the trade market. Guess who lined up to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? Nobody. That's why he's still a 49er today. Nobody wanted to trade for Jimmy G. It's just like in Cleveland. Outside of the Panthers, nobody wanted to trade for Baker Mayfield. And why was Trey Lance even a 49er? Look, just like I tweeted last night, put it all over social. I don't know how good Trey Lance is going to be. You guys know I loved him out of the draft. Not as high on him now. Problem is we don't really know. He's barely been on the field. Be that as it may. However good or bad Trey Lance may or may not be, are we seeing now why the 49ers traded all those first-round picks to move up to get the third overall pick to take Trey Lance, despite having Jimmy G in the building? See why they did that? He's average. He's not going to take you to the promised land. If last night, folks, was ever an example of how important having a franchise quarterback is, you got two squads in Denver and the 49ers. Immensely talented, offensively and defensively. Difference is one guy has Kyle Shanahan. The other guy has Nathaniel Hackett. Guess who won the game? Guess who led that last drive? Jimmy G had 2 chances. Couldn't get it done. You say, well, that last drive, the running back fumbled after Jimmy G got sacked at his own 2-yard line. Put him in bad position. He doesn't move well in the pocket. He's got an average arm at best. Folks, the 49ers probably should have scored 30 last night. Jimmy Garoppolo had Deebo Samuel wide open twice. Back-to-back drives. Deebo Samuel is going to walk in the end zone. Okay, the first one, Deebo Samuel just runs a go route on the right side. I mean, there's not a Bronco within 10 yards of him. He is wide open, and Jimmy G doesn't even look his way. He's the classic one-read quarterback, which in year 9, that shouldn't be the case, but it is. He looks his first read, and that's where he's going. He predetermines, I am throwing the football here. He does that more than any quarterback that I've seen. Certainly any great quarterback I've seen in the league. And then the second drive, Deebo Samuel again, wide open down the left sideline. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to get about 60 yards and put him in position to score a touchdown. Jimmy G's got him wide open and badly underthrows him. Deebo Samuel has to stop mid-route and almost like fair catch, just wait for it to fall in his hands before Bronco tackles him on the sideline. And did you see Deebo's reaction? He got up and just kind of had a big grin like, golly, if he just hit me on the run, I'd have scored. It's twice now. It's kind of like that and that laugh or smile so you don't cry type of thing. Like that's what it felt like from Deebo Samuel. That's why the 49ers traded all those first rounders to get the third pick last year. Because despite the fact that you think Jimmy G can win a Super Bowl with them, with that talented roster, Not even they do. I don't know if Trey Lance is the guy. Today doesn't look like it. But I know he's not the guy. Come on. Pulled a Dan Orlovsky running out of the back of his own end zone without even knowing where he is, literally taking 2 points and gifting them to the Broncos. And guess what? That safety ended up being the difference in the football game. Broncos won by 1, safety 2 points. That's the difference in the game right there. One play. He missed Deebo Samuel twice. He was completely immobile in the pocket. He is an average quarterback. I think the Niners are going to make the playoffs. They're 1-2. No need to panic. Next week, the Niners got the Rams. Okay, so maybe there's a little time to panic, okay? But listen, Kyle Shanahan's won 6 of his last 7 matchups against Sean McVay. And the Niners at home. Who's to say the Niners can't win that game? That's Monday Night Football next week. That'll be a great one. Okay, and then after that, you got Panthers, Falcons. They should win both those games. Then you got a Super Bowl rematch against Kansas City. But that game is in San Francisco at Rams, Chargers, Cardinals, Saints, Dolphins. Then he finished with Tampa, Seahawks, Commanders, Raiders, Cardinals. So again, pretty tough schedule moving forward. But you should be able to win enough of those games to get yourself in the playoffs. You should. Niners get in the playoffs. But again, I will put up, let me go ahead and put up the numbers again, the playoff numbers from Jimmy Garoppolo. There they are. Okay. 160 yards a game, 4 touchdowns, 6 picks, 61% completion, 74.1 passer rating. But he has a record of 4-2, and that's what everybody points out. Oh, he's won 70% of his games, although that changed last night. Now he's won under 70% of his games. He's got a winning record in the playoffs. Yeah, have you checked the 49ers rushing stats in those games? Have you checked Jimmy G's stats in those games? I mean, barely threw the ball against the Vikings. Really, Jimmy G's best playoff game was his first playoff win against the Minnesota Vikings a few years ago. Played pretty well in that game. NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers. You know how many passes he threw? He threw 7 more than you and I did. And then this past playoff run, Niners got the game in the bag against the Dallas Cowboys. They're up 23-10, 7 minutes to go. They're running the football right down Dallas's throat. Dallas is committing stupid penalty after stupid penalty. And what does right on cue? I swear to you, I'm watching the game with my sister, who's a big Packer fan. I said, Jimmy G's going to give us the ball back. Jimmy G's going to make a mistake. Right on cue, throws a pick, rolling out to his right, badly overthrows the receiver, throws a pick to Anthony Brown, and the 49ers win that game by the skin of their teeth. Then the next game against the Packers, the game that they say, oh, we outdueled Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers was garbage in that game. He wasn't as bad as Jimmy. Just because Jimmy won the game didn't mean he outplayed him. Yeah, he had one nice drive. But the special teams score more touchdowns than the offense. The special teams on a blocked punt with 3 minutes left in the game scored the only touchdown. Jimmy G threw a bad red zone interception. He was off all night. And then in the NFC Championship game, we all know what happened. Niners got a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter over the Rams. It's Super Bowl 54 all over again against Kansas City. Everybody blamed the Niners defense. Everybody blamed that Tart kid who dropped the interception. Well, Rams scored to make it a 3-point game. Jimmy Garoppolo got the ball back. Oh, and he did nothing. Rams go down the field, kick the tying field goal. Niners get the ball back. Jimmy G gets the ball back. They do nothing. And then the Rams kick the field goal to take the lead with 2 minutes left. Niners get the ball back. And Jimmy G throws the game-ending interception. He's an average quarterback, folks. He's a starter. But he is an average quarterback on a tremendous roster with a tremendous coaching staff. You mean to tell me your defense gives up? The defense gave up 9 points because Jimmy G gave the Broncos 2. Defense gave up 9 points. Jimmy G gave up 2 because of the safety. And you can't win that football game against a Broncos offense that looks about as bad as one could look. You got to win that game. You got to win that game if you're the 49ers. But again, it goes back to what I've always said about Jimmy G. If you have to rely on him to win a game, if he has to be the biggest reason you're going to win a game, then you're not going to win the game. It's as simple as that. He's not in that group of great quarterbacks. I'm not even sure. Actually, I'm pretty confident he's not a franchise quarterback. He's not. Yeah, I think a lot of quarterbacks would win 70% of their games, given what San Francisco has. Kyle Shanahan and those weapons and that defense, gosh, I'd sure hope so. I'd hope you could get to at least one Super Bowl. But listen, again, there's a quarterback in Dallas that the owner doesn't want. I'm just saying, San Francisco, don't dismiss the idea. All right, so sort of give a rundown of the games before I move on to an NBA topic before I get to Cowboys-Giants predictions. Bears beat the Texans, won a walk-off field goal. Justin Fields struggled throughout the day. He only went 8 for 17 for 106, 2 picks, passer rating of 27, QBR of 19. It was a long day, but the Bears' rushing attack was unbelievable. Okay, you had that Herbert kid who's really good, not Justin Herbert. Okay, not Justin Herbert, but Khalil Herbert, who ran for a $157 on 20 carries, averaged 8 yards a carry, had 2 touchdowns, had a long run of 52 yards. But the Bears overall ran for 281 yards on the Houston Texans. Davis Mills was fine. He threw for 245, touchdown, 2 picks, QBR of 19, passer rating of 70, a little under average in that regard. But the Texans came back. Bears opened out with a big lead. Texans came back, but ultimately Chicago won it on a game-winning field goal. And today, folks, Chicago Bears are tied for the first in the division. They're in a 3-way tie with the Vikings and with the Packers. So, hey, listen, never know. Bears might win the division. No, I'm just kidding. They're not winning the division. Titans outlasted the Raiders. The Raiders are now the only winless team in the NFL. They're now 0-3. Looks like I was right about the Josh McDaniels hiring, folks. He's in over his skis. The Raiders committed bad penalties. Red zone execution was awful. Okay, the 2-point conversion play, I'm not really sure what the call was. Derek Carr did all he could do. Derek Carr delivered the throw of the game on that 4th and 15. Who did he throw the ball to? What was that kid's name? Mac Hollins, who, by the way, had a big game. He had 8 catches for $158 and a touchdown. Mac Hollins had that big catch on that 4th and 15 throw from Derek Carr. But, again, bad execution by the Raiders, bad penalties. But if you're the Tennessee Titans, Tennessee is really struggling to close games. They couldn't close out the Giants on that last drive, and then Randy Bullock missed the walk-off field goal at the gun, and the Giants won that game in Nashville. They got smoked last week against Buffalo, and then yesterday. I mean, the Raiders are saying, here you go. Here you go. No mas. We're apparently cool with being 0-3. The Titans couldn't finish them off up until the bitter end. But the Titans were able to get that win. They're 1-2. Their division rival Colts got a big upset win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Huge win for the Colts, who are now 1-1-1. A win, a tie, and a loss. Or really, the way it goes, a win, a loss, and a tie. Kansas City committed some really, really brutal penalties down the stretch. It reminds, again, that's always been the knock against Andy Reid. Love Andy Reid. Love him. But man, his teams commit really inopportune penalties. You know, when you talk about his days in Philly, with the Chiefs, think about a lot of Andy Reid's playoff losses in Kansas City. They've all come on, bad penalties. Again, that Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay. It's like you can't put yourself in that position. Kansas City lost. They go to Tampa next week for possibly the final matchup between Mahomes and Brady. But it was a big win for the Colts. Matt Ryan led a game-winning drive, so big win for them. I've already talked about Bills Dolphins. Vikings Lions, I told you that was going to be closer than Vegas expected. I could not believe that Vegas had the Vikings as a 6-point favorite. And you guys know I really like Minnesota. I think they're going to win a playoff game this year. I think they're going to win the NFC North. But Detroit can score with anybody. But again, I don't think they're a well-coached team. I know everybody likes Dan Campbell. I like Dan Campbell. Who wouldn't want to play for that guy? Who wouldn't? And I'm not going to play the soundbite today. No biting ankles today. Or kneecaps, I'm sorry. But late in games, execution down the stretch, again, what do you do to close out football games against really good teams? That's where I worry about Detroit. Minnesota came out with it at the end, game-winning drive with 40-some seconds left, and they win the game at home. You had the Ravens beating the Patriots. That was Bryson's bleak bet, and for good reason. Lamar Jackson was absolutely spectacular, okay? He had 5 total touchdowns. He threw for 4, ran for 1, 200 yards passing, 100 yards rushing, QBR of 84, passer rating of 110. Mac Jones played decent, although up until he had the 3 interceptions, he was fine, but more concerning for the Patriots is that he left with a pretty serious looking ankle injury. I think they said it's a high ankle sprain that he's going to miss a few games. So we hope he recovers quickly. Bengals got a big 27-12 win over the Jets. That was my If I Were a Bet Man segment. And thankfully, if I were a bet man, I would have won some money there because the Bengals, cover the spread easily over the Jets. Joe Burrow played well. T. Higgins had some great plays. Quinnen Williams was pretty frustrated on the sideline for good reason. Big win for the Bengals. Eagles beat the Commanders 24-8. The Kobe Bryant score. That is crazy. Kobe was an Eagles fan, diehard Eagles fan. That was the second 24-8 score in NFL history. Like, you can't make this stuff up. So, big win for the Eagles. They beat their former quarterback, Carson Wentz. They sacked him 6 times in the first half. They were just, there was at one point in the game where Jalen Hurts had thrown for 332 yards and the Commanders had thrown for -1. It was a long day for Washington. Big win for the Eagles. Panthers outlasted the Saints in the running game. They outlasted the Saints 22-14. Running game was good. They had that big breakout play to Shenault. Okay, Baker Mayfield was shaky at best, but Jameis Winston was even worse. But a big win for the Panthers, their first of the year. Jags mollywopped the LA Chargers 38-10. I told you I was worried about Justin Herbert's health. What is Brandon Staley? What are you doing keeping him in the game? He's beat up. You're down 4 touchdowns with 4 minutes left. The game is over. Take your quarterback out of the game. And Justin Herbert's trying to excuse it after the game. He's saying, well, I just wanted to tough it out. No. He had to get injections in his rib before the game. Get him out of there. A lot of people don't think he should have played to begin with. So when the game is over, pull him. You don't need him aggravating it even worse. But as for Jacksonville, Justin Herbert looked Justin Herbert. Trevor Lawrence looked every bit like the number 1 pick that he was a year ago. And now Doug Peterson, congrats to him. He is now tied with Urban Meyer, 5th all-time in Jaguars wins. So big shout-out Doug Peterson, coaching only 3 games as a Jaguars coach. He's already 5th all-time in wins. Falcons beat the Seahawks 27-23. That Drake London kid that they drafted, man, that kid is going to be really, really good. Made some big plays. DK Metcalf had a great catch, but the Falcons outlasted the Seahawks. Rams beat the Cardinals 20-12. Cooper Kupp had that reverse for a touchdown. Man, I'll tell you, Cam Akers is going to be back in the doghouse. Dude cannot hang on to the football. I don't know what's going on with this dude. He had that big goal line fumble that kept Arizona in it. Like, man, he's got a bad case of the fumbleitis because he has had a really rough time hanging on the ball. But the Rams beat the Cardinals 20-12. The Cardinals have only beaten the Rams once since Sean McVay took over as the head coach. So great day of football yesterday, but let's shift to a little bit of basketball, which I didn't think I'd be doing in September, but hey, it's what I love about sports. But 2 teams had their media day yesterday, and that would be my Golden State Warriors, your defending, reigning 2022 NBA champions, and the Milwaukee Bucks, who were the 2021 NBA champions. So the last 2 NBA champions had their media day today. And they were talking to Giannis. Now, many folks say that Giannis is the best player in the world. And I said up until the finals, yeah, nobody impacts the game offensively and defensively more than Giannis does. But with that being said, you guys know, ain't nobody has an impact on the game as a whole more than one Wardell Stephen Curry II. Apparently, Giannis himself agrees. He said, and I quote, "Do I believe I'm the best player in the world? No. I believe the best player in the world is Steph Curry until the next player." And Giannis went on to explain about how he believes the best player in the world is the last man standing. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily always the case, because a lot of people said in 2019 that Kawhi was the best player in the world when I would have taken KD over him, LeBron over him, and Steph over him. Okay, LeBron sort of reestablished himself as the best player in the world by winning with the Lakers in 2020. But I felt like Giannis took that from him the way he dominated the Phoenix Suns in the finals in 2021. But going out in the second round against the Boston Celtics, albeit without Chris Middleton, I felt like Steph wrestled that title away from Giannis the way he dominated the best defense in basketball, the Boston Celtics. And by the way, they actually told Steph about it after the game. He was asked about what Giannis is saying, and Steph said, "Quote: I would say the same thing when you're facing the champions. That's part of the nature of the league. We all want to win the championship, and when you look at the team that's the last team standing, who is playing the best, I was thinking the same thing about him last year coming off their run. So, respect between two great players. Again, I don't think it's even a debate that those two are the best in the world. You know me, I'm rolling with Steph. A lot of people are rolling with Giannis. That's fine. But what I will say is that the guy everybody says the best player in the world says that my guy's the best player in the world, and the greater version of Giannis, being Shaquille O'Neal, says Steph Curry's the best player in the world. I don't know. I don't know what more confirmation you need, but what can I say? My team's we're going to be the back-to-back champs. We're going to win in 2023. There's no question about it. We won the championship and we got better. We pulled an LA Rams. We got better. I added Dante DiVincenzo. Okay, we added my man Mac McClung, the dunk god, as people have called him from high school. Okay, we got Matt McClung in the building. Okay, Jordan Poole's only going to be better. He's going to play at an all-star level caliber this year like he did in the playoffs. Wiseman's back. Kuminga's 20. With the kind of upside that kid has, I think Moses Moody is going to have a tremendous, tremendous year. I think he's going to be bigger as far as closing games than Jonathan Kuminga is going to be. Wiggins is back. Clay's going to be better, not coming off an injury finally. And I got the best player in the world, and y'all don't. Give me Wardell Stephen Curry II today over anybody. ESPN, you're telling me he's the 5th best player in the world? Miss me with that. We got a game tonight, though. Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, age-old rivalry, 2 NFC East foes. Giants fighting to be tied for the Eagles for first place in the NFC East. Cowboys fighting to be a game back of the Eagles in the NFC East. Big matchup tonight, so let's get it on. So, the Giants in this game are favored by a point, so it's that close to being a pick'em. This is a really interesting one because you have 2 obviously very limited quarterbacks. Cooper Rush for the Cowboys, Daniel Jones for the Giants. You have 2 tremendous running games. Saquon Barkley for the Giants, and then you got the tandem in Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Offensive lines are limited. Weapons are limited for both teams. And for both teams, their defenses are excellent. Obviously, Dallas will clearly have the best defensive player in the field, that being Micah Parsons. Heck, the way he's playing, one could make the argument Dallas may have the 2 best defensive players in the field in, obviously, Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs is playing very well the first 2 games of the year. Hasn't given up, any big plays. He's been smart. He hasn't gambled as much as he did last year. So he's played well. Here's what I look at, though. The New York Giants have been really, really good at stopping the run. They held Derrick Henry in check. They held the Carolina Panthers in check. That's kind of their strength. Dallas struggles a little bit stopping the run. We saw what Leonard Fournette did them in week 1. Okay, Joe Mixon had some decent runs against them last week. So Dallas, despite some of the strength they have in that defensive line, struggles a little bit to stop the run. Here's what decides it for me, though. Limited quarterbacks, limited wideouts, great defense, great running game. It's going to come down to execution. It's going to come down to who is able to, again, execute well at the end of the game. Because this is going to be a close game. This is going to be sort of a, like Green Bay Tampa yesterday, sort of a knockout, drag-out defensive battle. So who do I trust in that regard? Brian Dable or Mike McCarthy? I know he's 2 games in, but when they're giving you a nickname 2 games in, Brian Daballs, I'm rolling with Brian Dable. Give me the New York Giants to win this game over the Dallas Cowboys by a final score of 19-17. Again, I think it's going to be a big defensive battle. I think the Giants win this game and are the most shocking 3-0 team in a while. Giants win over the Cowboys 19-17. And with that, that is all the time you have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live. We will be live this time, don't worry. At 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Carving It Up podcast YouTube channel. Like, share, comment. Again, hit that big red subscribe button. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network and subscribe to the Grid Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and right here on YouTube, where every Carving It Up show and clip is uploaded. So, enjoy the game tonight, folks. Have a great week. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Eat it, Florida. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.